Hello everybody, this is Bill McFadden from TonePure.com, and in this video we're going to get into modulation to different keys by using secondary dominants. So the example you just heard was going from the key of C to the key of D, and here is the melody that we were modulating. Here's the melody with secondary dominants, which we discussed in the previous video on modulating, on basically making melodies more interesting using secondary dominants. And here's the melody. And then we went ahead and modulated it into the key of D major, which is right here. So here's the melody and then the modulation. Right here. So we notice that when we modulate into the key of D major, starting in the key of C major, we go from no flats, no sharps to two sharps. And here's an example where we go from the original melody to one sharp, the key of G major, and that would sound like this. But let's take a look at the transition before we do. Here's the transition. Here's where the modulation begins. And notice that D7 is actually it's a secondary dominant to the key of C, but it is the primary dominant to the key of G. So that's what we do, is we use the primary dominant to the key we're going to in order to do the modulation. So let's listen to this now. So now we're modulating in this example from C to F. F major has one flat, so we're going from 0 flats, 0 sharps in C to one flat in F major. And then the primary dominant to the key of F is C7. And so that would sound like this. So let's go ahead and speed up the tempo a little bit. And let's go to modulate to the key of D major, which has 2 sharps. And your modulation, since we're going to the key of D, happens right here. Here you see the key signature change. So A7 is the primary dominant of D. It's a secondary dominant, a secondary dominant in the key of C, but it's the primary dominant in the key of D. And so your A7 goes to D. So let's listen to this at a faster tempo. And now we're modulating to 2 flats. From C, no flats, no sharps, to the key of B flat major. Here's the transition right here. Here's where we change the keys. And notice that F7 is a secondary dominant to the key of C, since the primary dominant in the key of C is G7. But the F7 is the primary dominant in the key of B flat when you go from F7 to B flat. So let's see what that modulation sounds like. So in this example, we're modulating from C to the key of A major. So notice here's the modulation. E7 is a secondary dominant in the key of C, but it's the primary dominant in the key of A. So we modulate, here's your E7 to A, which brings us into the new key with 3 sharps. So now just to refresh your memory, in the original melody from the last video, these are the secondary dominants in the key of C. Like this is a secondary dominant to the 5 chord, which in the key of C is G. So the D7 goes to the G. Here you have the secondary dominant of the 6 chord, which is A minor. So you have the E7 going to A minor. And then here we have the secondary dominant of the 4 chord, the 4 chord being F. So we're going from C7. Let's try that again. From C7 to F. And then here is the secondary dominant of the 1 chord. Actually, it's the primary dominant because the dominant in the key of C is the F7 chord. So this is just the F7 going back to the tonic. And then here we have the 5/7 of the 4 chord, which is F. So the C7 goes to the F, and here we have the dominant, the secondary dominant of the 5 chord, the 5 chord being G, going to G. And then here's a secondary dominant in the key of C, E7, but it's the primary dominant in the key of A. So it goes from A7 into A. So let's hear that. And by the way, these are the secondary dominants in the key of A. Here's your secondary dominant for the 6th chord in the key of A, and so on. Okay, so let's listen to that from the top. And then we have modulation of the key V flat major, which has 3 flats. And then the primary dominant of E flat is B flat 7, which goes to E flat. So let's listen to that. Modulating. So we're going from the key of C, no flats, no sharps, to 3 flats. Then we're going to modulate to the key of E major, which has 4 sharps. So the primary dominant of the key of E is B7, which goes to E, and the B7 is a secondary dominant in the key of C. So let's listen to that. And then the last one we'll do is the modulating to the key of A flat. So we could go on and we could go to 5 sharps, 5 flats, but I think you get the idea. The files will be made available, the Dorical files, the Dorical XML, if you're using another notation program such as Finale or Sibelius or MuseScore, as well as the Cubase project file and the MIDI file. If you found this video useful, then please like and subscribe. And also we'll be continuing in this series on modulation to other keys. So stay tuned for the next soon upcoming video. Bill McFadden signing off from tonepure.com.